And we often had snakes down there. Sometimes there were copperheads. One time there was like a bear in the valley, which I don't know where that came from because I did not know we had bear in our area, in green. And I thought, oh, that looks like a slide. I actually think that would be super fun to like sit down and slide. So my friend and I decided, let's just try it out. So the water was like running off from the pond on this green, slimy, disgusting runoff.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, September 7th. Last week we talked about a book that Jinger Volo wrote with her husband that has been getting really bad reviews online. And today we're actually going to talk about something I think she should do more of because she just came out with a video on cooking that showed a side of Jinger that we just rarely ever see, and also introduced us to a part of Jinger that we know she's very good at and loves to do, which is cooking.
Today I'm going to be making Tater Tot Casserole. It's a classic dish from Arkansas. I don't know if that's exactly where it originated, but for me it is because it's something I grew up eating.
Not to say that Jinger isn't skilled at many other things. We just know that Jinger absolutely loves to cook. And this video, I was pleasantly surprised, and I thought she was engaging. Her stories were actually her anecdotes about growing up in Arkansas were super cute. And I think if Jinger wants to move forward in her life, more of this and less of the biblical books and podcasts and telling other people like how to live and do their lives, less of that and more of this. Show us who you are, Jinger. Show us what you're all about. Show us the personality that we've all grown to love over the years. And this video I actually thought was really well done, and I thought super cute. Now, the recipe is not the same recipe that I have for this, but it's the famous Duggar's Tater Tot Casserole.
Whenever my family first started the show, we would make this dish all the time, and people were really obsessed with it, and so they saw it on the show and thought, oh, this is what they eat. And we had families traveling through all the time, and they would constantly be asking us, hey, can we have some of your famous tater tot casserole? And we were sick of it by the end because we had it multiple times a week. And so all of us kids would protest when we'd have visitors come. They would say, please make it again. And we would say, I don't think so.
So Jinger has a new video out, and it's interesting because I feel like Jinger is sort of at this place right now where she's trying to find her footings. She's trying to figure out like what her next steps are in her life. She wants to put out content that I think is, matches who she is. And I think she's trying to figure out like, who do I want to be? Do I want to be Jinger from Counting On? Do I want to show the Jinger I am today? What is it that I'm trying to demonstrate? She and Jeremy have gone down this path of trying to emulate a lot of what her parents have done. And I think some of that has gotten some backlash, particularly her child's book. And even her book, people have just called this sort of a grift and the next way to like a money grab. In this, I see a side of Jinger where she seems super authentic and more who she is and kind of the girl that we saw on the show that we adored. And I was all here for it. So in the video, Jinger is making the famous Duggar's Tater Tot Casserole. Now, if you're from Minnesota, where I'm from, we call this tater tot hot dish. And in Minnesota, we do not make it the exact same way as she does. And she actually recommended eating this for breakfast because this is because of the hash browns or the tater tots that are a part of it.
I feel like breakfast is kind of what most people would use it for because it has like the tater tots and it can work well. You can add in veggies if you'd like, or just keep it as is.
In Minnesota, this would actually be a staple at dinner. Yeah, this would not be something that we would eat at breakfast, but she said that this would be a good breakfast meal. Whatever you want to do with your tater tots is totally up to you. One thing the Duggars were known about when they were making their food was just how everything was canned and everything was they didn't have a lot of nutritious food in their home because they were feeding a lot of kids, and they lived off of Aldi, and they would go to stores and they would buy like a bunch of canned foods, and they lived off a lot of processed food. Living in the world of the Duggars, it was about getting the food in as much as, getting cheap food in when they didn't have as much money. Once they got more money, it was less of a problem, but they had a lot of kids to feed and they didn't have a lot of money for a very long time. So they relied heavily on just canned goods when it came to feeding their children. Jessa Duggar has made comments, and even in their book, they've talked about how Jim Bob is not the best cook, and he developed what's called barbecued tuna, where he adds barbecue sauce to a package of tuna. There's also, him eating out of a can of just vegetables. And canned vegetables are probably the least nutritious because they've been salted and it takes out a lot of the nutrients, but that's how he would eat when Michelle would be out and about. And this specific recipe that the Duggars made, I always thought was funny because it's super easy to make, but they don't actually add a lot of ingredients to it, which is funny because in Minnesota, we would have added vegetables to it. Ginger's take on this is super simple. She adds a can of chicken, cream of mushroom soup, cream of chicken soup. She adds evaporated milk and ground turkey and tater tots, okay? Now here we would use ground beef, we would use we would cut up onion, and we would add that to the ground beef. We would also put in my house at least, we often will add mushrooms. We'll also add green beans and sometimes corn, and a lot of times cheese. So hers did not contain any cheese, and it's just it's that mix of the soups with the milk and the browned meat with the tater tots, and she puts the sauce on top. Now, not super exciting, looks delicious. She again suggests eating it in the morning. I would say eat this at night, and I would say add cheese and veggies and used ground beef. Those are my tips. Anyways, but in her video, she tells about how when she was like a kid growing up in Arkansas, they would have to go to where Josh and Anna live now, the warehouse, and do their filming for their interviews for the show. And so they would have to run through a valley in order from the house to this shed in order to get there. And she would say that there would sometimes be copperhead snakes. She even said one time there was a bear, and she would have to run through there, and they would run through the valley to go do their
Arkansas stories. I'm thinking about my childhood growing up, just living on a lot of acreage. We would run all over the place, all over our property. We had snakes in the valley where we would have to run, especially when we were doing this show, we would have to go up for interviews to our shop building, which was right at the top of the hill, but there was a valley between, and we often had snakes down there. Sometimes there were copperheads. One time there was a bear in the valley, which I don't know where that came from because I did not know we had bear in our area.
And then she also mentioned about how there was this other time where there was looked like a slide, and it was just basically runoff of water going down a hill, and she and her friend decided that they were going to go over a barrier and slide down it, and they thought it would be fun. And she said that she ended up cutting her foot open and has a huge chunk left out of her foot, and her friend ended up with leashes all over herself. And so she described country living and Arkansas living as you never knew what you were going to get. It was always unexpected. She remembers that specifically because she ended up with a scar on her foot to this day. I did a video just a few minutes ago about Joy and the gun when it comes to the copperheads, and the Duggars have a lot of them, and she's talking about having copperheads even in their location, and those are venomous snakes. So, and she said one time there was a bear. Can you imagine going outside and you're oh, I gotta go do filming for my show, and there's a bear? They do live in a relatively rural area. There's a lot of pastures. They also live by the dump. Anyways, I found Ginger's first take at cooking to be, this is who if you're looking for a niche, do more of this. Seriously. Skip the books. Skip writing biblical books. Skip the proselytizing and selling of God. Stop monetizing your worldly, your godly beliefs. Stop telling people about how to believe and just be yourself. She's grown up in a world where her parents thought it was their mission to spread the gospel to every single person and their duty to recruit as many people into their cult, the IBLP. And then she went on to marry a pastor who works for and is at a seminary where John MacArthur has found a very high way of monetizing God by writing books, curriculums, seminars, seminaries, and every part of her life is about God and telling people about God. Well, it's one thing to have faith. It's another thing to take faith and monetize every part of your faith and then use that to make a living off of. Whereas I think people would connect better with her, not to say that just because she is faithful, she shouldn't talk about that, but I think people would connect with her more and be less irritated by a lot of their content if she did more of what she did today. She wasn't doing anything fancy. She wasn't going to make a shirt. She didn't go do LA things where she had to like go to the sneaker shop or, show that she was an LA type. She was just like in her element, comfortable with what she was doing and showing who she was. No discussions about faith, no discussions about God, nothing over the top. They didn't go fishing. Part of the reason I think people have struggled with their YouTube channel is I think that people have been trying to tell Jinger and Jeremy, they don't have to try so hard, right? You can just literally show your life and people will tune in. I mean, honestly, show us your house. That video I thought was super cute. You got to see a peek inside of their world. Jessa's whole channel recently has been renovating that house they moved into, and people loved it. So there's a way to make videos without having to have a production and have to have an agenda. Like she went to a concert in one. Everyone wants to see that side of her, but I think more than anything, people just want to connect with her and get back to the Jinger that they knew. And I think if they could get that and get more of this, she'll do great. I will say this again. I think she's a sweet, sweet girl. I have nothing against her at all. I think she's just trying to find what she wants to do and a way to support her family. And I think if she did more of this and shared more anecdotes about her life and just shared who she was, people would resonate with her and she could express her faith just in who she was instead of telling people how to be. And that's where people get turned off, especially with Jeremy. So this was a thumbs up for me. Check out the whole video in the description box below. And if you are interested in her, she's got the full recipe that she's got listed. Again, I would suggest adding onions, ground beef, some green beans, and a lot of cheese. The more cheese, the better. All right, you guys, tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.